Welcome to Everyday Sens subscribers to another members only pod. Our submitted question today is, what is the most critical factor behind Ottawa making the playoffs next season? It's a very, a lot of potential factors, obviously, that could boost them in and could pull them out again, as we've seen. So, your submitted questions will be read off. We'll give you a shout out and with your Instagram handle, and we'll just give our takes on what everything that you guys think. And I'm sure that we're all kind of come to the same conclusion. But yeah, I'm looking forward to these again. I'm going in blind. I haven't seen any of these, so I'm Brennan's gonna read them off, and we're both gonna give our takes. And yeah, let's get it going, Brennan.
All right, yeah. So we're gonna start things off with from at Kirk Davies 8 and at Cole Schron 12. It's gonna be goaltending consistency. So that's kind of an interesting one. I think goaltending was largely affected by health last year, so you can kind of group those two things together for that position. But I think in general, though, like Cam Talbot last season was largely inconsistent. He was not somebody who I felt comfortable with in the net. I think you want to be confident in your goalie, right? You don't want to be going into a game with your goalie feeling like someone who's going to let in a goal at the worst time possible, which was what Cam Talbot did on a fairly regular basis last year. Forsberg, again, he was, had a really good season last season, and then this season was kind of gaining that comfort back throughout the year, I think, and then he got hurt. So can he bounce back? I know Pierre Dorion has referenced potentially trading for someone. I think that would be a great option if the price is right, but for me, goaltending consistency is definitely a good key because we saw what happens when you start 7 different goaltenders over the course of a season.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it right off the bat there. I think goaltending consistency. I think most people probably immediately think they need healthy goalies. But you're right. I don't think even Anton Forsberg was a culprit of this as well at times. Like they just weren't good enough for some stretches. And I'm thinking to that game immediately in my head. I'm thinking of the Seattle game in Ottawa. They had 8 unanswered or 8 even strength goals against, I should say, like stuff like that. And I know in November when the Sens were going through a rough patch, I think they were each pulled twice in obviously in 4 different games. Like that can't happen. So it's consistency, yeah, but it's also consistent play, and just it can't be overstated how important that is for a team because it doesn't matter what your numbers are necessarily, but if you're around the same save percentage and making the same saves every night as a player, you're gonna have more confidence that you know what you're getting out of your goalie every night. And I don't think the Sens have had that for a long time, honestly, since Craig Anderson. So that's a good one from Kirk and Cole there. I think that's honestly could be the biggest factor. I might agree with that one the most because we'll talk about it obviously this summer. We already have, but their roster as structured right now is pretty good, and I would say playoff caliber even without the depth right now. I think they can make the playoffs, but it's goaltending's the biggest question mark for sure.
So would you feel confident entering next season with Forsberg and Sogard?
Oh,
Like to make the playoffs? Because that's what this question is like to make
right.
the playoffs. Would you feel comfortable if we, like October 13th or whatever it is, with that tandem? I'd feel a little nervous. Just a little
I'd be
bit.
nervous. I'd be nervous, but I would still feel confident because again, Sogard's a good example, right? I think he probably modeled more than the other two inconsistent and consistent play. And you say inconsistent and consistent, but he was just overall inconsistent because he wasn't good all the time. But when he was good, I think I'd be okay with it, maybe more than others. Like I know we've talked about it before, but I'd be okay rolling Mads Sogard in, especially if you can't find. Like I don't want to go and spend 4 million dollars on a goalie who is maybe going to be better because then you're in the same Cam Talbot situation. So I'd rather save the money, save the cap space, roll with Sogard if he's ready, unless there's obviously an option like Connor Hellebuck out there. But I would be more confident than I think others might be. Like I'm good with Sogard because I think I think it comes from having a lot of confidence in Anton Forsberg. And I know that's maybe a bit divisive or divisive. Like I've got some friends who are obviously are Sens fans, and one of them, I'll give him a shout out here. He hates Forsberg for some reason, just has zero confidence in him. And that's fine, but I'm the opposite. Like I have a lot of confidence in Forsberg. And I believe he will bounce back from that pretty gruesome injury as well.
Yeah, well, Forsberg, he kind of just came in out of nowhere. Like, he was a waiver acquisition. So I think when people initially got him, he wasn't like a hyped prospect who came in and carried all this confidence and you felt good about him. He was never, the starting goalie for Team Sweden at the World Juniors or this guy who kind of came through the ranks. He was just some random guy that felt like he was off the street who had been passed around the league at 28 years old or whatever. I mean, people are kind of, I think, still a little wary just because of that. But I think, like, I wrote about it last season. He was so good, so good. I mean, his numbers were, I said it before, but he was the second best goalie behind Ilya Sorokin outside of playoff teams, I believe, in my opinion. And I think, yeah, for me, the only concern is the injury. Like, it's just 2 knee injuries for a goalie. And he's close to 30. I mean, I don't know how that's going to affect him, but I do have confidence too. From what he said, I think he did an interview or he mentioned it somewhere not too long ago that he was skating already and he felt pretty good walking on the knees. And he's going to be like a full participant in training camp and everything with all of his pads, and I think he might already be taking shots. So yeah, I'm pretty confident, and I think that's a good start to this episode, because that goaltending debate just goes on and on. I mean, we can go back and forth on that, and again, like you said, acquiring someone for even 2 or 3 million, it's a little hard if they sign to Brinkett, which it sounds like they're going to, even if it's a 1-year deal. So if you've got him at 8 or 9 million, signing a goalie and spending 3 million on that, like, you need the depth, right? You need the depth. Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna touch on DeBrincat a little bit, and I'm sure we might get into that with some of these. But yeah, like if you bring him back on the qualifying offer, which was kind of we'll get a shout out there to Locked On Senators, like a great interview with Pierre Dorion today, and I mean yesterday for those listening. But he mentioned he'd be comfortable bringing him back on a 1-year deal, and I was like, thank you, Pierre, because I've kind of been saying you kind of have to. But if they do that, I think I'm gonna tease it right now. We haven't even talked about it. Next episode, we're going to spend some time on Alex DeBrincat. I feel like we keep kicking the can down the road, but it'll be June and it'll be time. So, arbitration, but let's say he gets the 1 million, 1 year, 9 million, I should say. That's not a lot of cap space for next season. So you kind of have to penny pinch a little bit. And I think Sogard is a good option to roll with, just based on the salary as well. Like that should have more value than Semyon Varlamov at 4 million. I should, just to throw a name out.
It's just like, how much of an upgrade would a guy, like a Varlamov at his
Yeah,
age or somebody else be
like
for that price, right? Is it
yeah,
really worth?
is it a $3.1 million upgrade? Probably not. Like
Because that
that's
money
still
can be
value.
spent elsewhere. Like, you're looking at
Exactly.
guys like Pinto and who cost less than that. I mean, you can
Yeah,
find free agents who would be legitimately good third liners, for example,
just for
at that
fast.
price or less than that price. So
Yeah.
I'd rather spend it on that and fill out the lineup instead of getting a goalie who could just be another Cam Talbot, or it's a bit risky. Do I feel totally confident in that tandem of Forsberg Sogard? No, but do I feel like they're going to be bad either? No. Like, at worst, I think they're average, which is fine.
Exactly, and also about goaltending, like it's always a question mark, regardless of who they bring in. They could go make a blockbuster deal for Connor Hellebuck, and he could come and just absolutely stink the bed. Like, goaltending is absolute voodoo. And again, I'm sure again it'll come up in these other prompts here, but coaching is important for goaltending too. Like, high danger chances against Philip Gustafson. I was all over Twitter during the playoffs. He looked good. He was not a top 5 goalie in the league this season based on what I watched. He was playing behind a good system. And like, that matters too. So I'd be more confident in that than going out and signing a guy for 4 million, 5 million.
Yeah, I mean, Ottawa's defense getting better has to be mentioned there with the goalies too. Like you said, it's just a matter of they had a lot of liabilities, and I mean, again, Nikita Zaitsev was playing a prominent role for part of this season, and like, this defense was by no means a playoff caliber defense for the entire season that we saw, especially with injuries. So I think that definitely did hurt the goalies too. And now they've got a Chikrin, and they've got another year of Sanderson, and they've got Brandstrom's now solidified. So I don't know. I think this defense is going to be surprising to other fan bases, and that's going to help the goalies. With that, I'm going to actually get into, from at Liam222, less mistakes defensively, which I kind of rephrased. He said shutting it down defensively. So I think it's just kind of like a structural thing, because this has been lacking in Ottawa for a long, long time, where they give up a lot of high danger chances. And if you go and look at the numbers, they were giving up among the most in the league. And I mean, we're talking about like bad, like Arizona level bad over the last few years, where they don't look like a playoff team defensively. And is that on the system or DJ Smith? I don't know. I mean, yes, under him, it looks like they kind of fail to adjust a lot of the time, or players look a bit lost. But I think the personnel is to blame on that too. So I think this is very important defensively, and it comes back to helping the goalies. But I think whatever it is, the players need to be more aware of their own role on the ice. Like, they have to be understanding what they're doing, and if they're not, then something has to change in practice, because giving up as many high danger chances as they do, it's just not sustainable. Like, you have to be able to limit that and guard the front of the net. So hopefully we see that a little bit more with the addition of Chychrun and maybe this, a bit more depth on defense, because I think personnel does really have to be mentioned. But yeah, I like this one as well, and I think tightening things up in the defensive zone is critical moving forward.
Yeah, and that's going to be, we've talked a lot about, success come playoff time, and we'll worry about that when we get there. But installing a good defensive mentality during the regular season is pretty imperative during the playoffs too. And I mean, you look at the teams that have made runs this season the last few years, it's because they buy into this defensive mindset. And again, a lot of the time, going back to the goaltending, it's on the back of a very strong goaltending performance. But I'd encourage Sens fans to watch Vegas this finals, which is going to be starting up this weekend. Like, I think the Vegas Golden Knights are kind of the anti excuse for the Sens the last couple seasons, because they're on their fourth string goalie and they're in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, Jack Eichel's a superstar, but he's not a top 10 talent, maybe, or maybe he is, but you know what I mean? Like, he's not a superstar bona fide name right now anyway. And then you got Mark Stone. Like, it's just a cast of people who buy into a program, and they've got the best coach, or one of the best coaches in the league, in Bruce Cassidy. So all of that matters, I think. But I like that you also mentioned personnel, because you can call it young mistakes, you can call it veterans making mistakes. Like, and I'm mentioning Thomas Chabot because I think he is now like one of, and probably the he is, no, I don't know why I said probably, he is the most tenured Ottawa Senators player right now. And he had a lot of mistakes last season. And I'm not, again, you can link his mistakes to too much ice time, DJ Smith development. Like, that's a whole other conversation to me. But at the end of the day, he's the player making the plays, and they have to be the ones to shore it up. So they have to be the ones buying into that. And I'm going to take it even further. The forwards need to buy in defensively. Way too much cheating last season. I think I can think of 7 different kind of goals right off the top of my head that just irk me, because it's due to the lack of back pressure from the forwards, which should be like the number one thing you learn, or it is the number one thing you learn when you're a youth hockey player, is get back, and then you can go have fun on offense. So that it's a whole team thing. It's team defense. It's not the decor. It's not just the defensive zone. It's transitional play, when turnovers happen, when those mistakes happen. I think the reaction needs to be better. It needs to be quicker and harder. And that's what I'm going to be looking for, I think, when the season opens, is how this team's buying in defensively
Yeah,
overall.
and like with personnel too, those mistakes are going to happen less with better personnel. Like when you're trying to make a breakout pass or an exit pass, and you have Jacob Chychrun instead of Nikita Zaitsev making that pass, that's a big difference. Like, you're going to have a much higher effectiveness rate by doing that, and less turnovers means less time in your own end. And that's the thing, and where Ottawa needs to start. And we're going to get into this with the next point, because I think it's a great transitional pivot for me here. But they need to be a possession team. They need to start valuing possession with the puck. And this was one of DJ's largest faults, which I haven't seen mentioned in a while, or the system they kind of run. I know it's physicality, it's hard work, it's grit, like it's in the corners, playing dirty. I get it. But I am so tired of seeing them fire the puck into the corner right after they get over the red line when it's Alex DeBrincat with it on his stick. Like, you need to be able to have possession and sustain that and carry that through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, then set up in the O zone, pass the puck around, and make a play. Like, it's not just about firing everything in from the top of the circle or the top of the blue line. It's, actually passing the puck around and valuing possession. I don't think they've done that very well. And I think, like, that does relate to defense, absolutely, because when you have the puck on your stick, like, it's not going to go in your own net, right? So possession is kind of an underrated aspect to defense, and I think that with the skill this team has, and they have a lot of skill. I mean, I know there was a tweet recently from, I'm blanking on his name, you might know, but I think it's Byron on Twitter, Byron something on Twitter, who like has a system which ranks stars and ranks all different sorts of players. He's a scout. Ottawa had 7 stars according to his the way his system works. Like, Buffalo has 2 for reference. And again, you can take that with a grain of salt, but it's just a general kind of thing of, like, they have a lot of star power and a lot of skill in this team. And with that means you have to play with skill. You have to play with the puck. You have to sustain possession and turn possession into quality chances. But again, like, you don't want to be giving up 35 shots a night anymore. Like, it's time to kind of tighten things up, focus on crisp passes, less mistakes, less turnovers, and it all relates to defense. So I really like this point, and I do think defense is going to be one of the most underrated parts of their improvement this next season because it's a lot better on that back end. And again, the forwards too. And I think Brady too, like to your point, Brady Tkachuk mentioned after that 5-0 loss to Chicago that they were cheating the game. They were cheating the game. They were way up the ice. They were not playing defense. They just wanted to score. Like, being able to actually take accountability on that is huge for this young core, and I think they're just going to keep doing that. And once you realize that, we are cheating the game, they're not going to do it anymore. So I do think that's going to be a huge point this season. And do you have anything else on the defense?
No, you're bang on, and the dump and chase and everything. And I think again, like supplementing the depth with guys who aren't dump and chase players, like having a third line that can drive offense, and driving offense means hanging on to pucks. And um, I know that the Sens dump and chase, but there's one team that was very successful, and I want to say it's Carolina. There or it might not be them, but there are models of the dump and chase in quotes. I'm going to say that works, and I think it might be Carolina that kind of utilizes it because their forecheck is so good. And you mentioned Alex DeBrincat, and I know that at some point this season or last season, I should say, DeBrincat was like a top player in the league in forechecking because he was doing it so much, right? And it was almost surprising, but you're right. I think DeBrincat specifically is not a dump and chase player. Like we've seen him with these controlled entries. I think they've got two guys on the roster who can do it very effectively, and it's Tim Stützle and Alex DeBrincat. Just because they're fast, they can skate, and they can move the puck when they skate that fast. So, not to say that Batherson or Kachuk or Giroux and Norris can't drive play and carry the puck in, but those two, DeBrincat and Stützle, have the foot speed to do it as well. So I like that point a lot about puck possession being good defense.
For sure, yeah. And that's the thing with forechecking is it's not just about hitting the opposition, it's about speed and puck retrieval. Like you have to actually get the puck. And I think like the Sens are starting to finally value the puck, and that's just what I keep saying because that's how you win. You have the puck on your stick. So we'll pivot into a related point from at Alex Lawler Sucks and at Darcy Finn. It is coaching decisions, and I thought of this when you said about Thomas Chabot, how that's a bit of a different discussion. And again, I don't like we kind of just talked about the systems and the dump and chase and everything. I'm more with personnel on coaching decisions about like Thomas Chabot, because I think getting Chabot back in his groove is going to make the team monumentally better. Like they're going to be so much better if you can even get Thomas Chabot back onto his game, and that just comes with ice time. That just comes with reducing it. That comes with recognizing that they were overusing him for so many years, and now you don't have to anymore. It comes with a balanced defense, a top four, which you can, a top six even, which you can kind of play evenly and get, contributions at both ends of the ice. I think it comes with not playing Travis Hamonic every night if he resigns. It comes with, same with Austin Watson or these depth guys, and kind of recognizing when depth guys aren't scoring, because my God, they did not score. Like you have to make a change, right? And again, I've mentioned it before, but that second line of Pinto, Batherson, and DeBrincat did not work. They had a negative 11 goal differential at 5v5, and yet they played together for almost the entire season. Like they never changed. So I think on DJ, you just kind of have to be able to recognize, and I do think it'll be DJ back, and adapt. Like he's gonna have to adapt, and he's gonna have to not get out coached like we've kind of seen in the past. So if this is gonna be a playoff team, a lot of it does come down to coaching. It comes down to personnel, and yeah, I mean DJ's gonna be ultimately maybe the biggest factor behind what happens there next season.
Yeah, the coaching decisions you can talk about it forever. Like the biggest one for me is you mentioned the top six forwards kind of, right? And you need depth that can score. So that's out of DJ's hands, really, right? Like he can't tell Austin Watson and Mark Kaslick to go put goals in the back of the net, or Parker Kelly or whoever the hell's on the fourth line. Um, the thing is, with that top six, that he didn't switch up Pinto, Batherson, and DeBrincat, was that top line was so good together. And it's just it's a 50-50 thing, right? It's like, do I split them up and sacrifice how good that top line is, and hope that a second line that should be driving play, because arguably, DeBrincat can be the best player on the team in any given night. Like that should be a line that works. I can understand why it was a little tough to break that up, because they did do it sometimes. But I found the team was more flat when they didn't have Kachuk, Giroux, and Stützle. It also depends, like, at home or on the road. I don't know if it's in there, but they need to be so much better on the road. They've just been terrible there for as long as the Kachuk has been here. They've just been an awful road team. So that has to change. But that to me more is coaching decisions. I think you can blame a road loss more on coaching than you can blame a home loss on coaching, because on the road you need to be hyper focused on who's out there at what time, and even when it's a 10-second shift for the fourth line, can easily turn into a minute and a half getting hemmed against Connor McDavid out there. So coaching decisions for me is going to depend on who he has for a third and fourth line. Like I don't want to if let's say in a bad world, obviously they roll out with the same kind of bottom nine or bottom six that they had this season, just put Pinto back there. Um, if they're not scoring, there's only so much a coach can do. And I would argue that maybe like I think that DJ did a decent job with the forwards, in terms of trying to supplement the offense here and there. Because, like you said, when DeBrincat and Batherson are minus 11 at 5-on-5, that's not going to cut it. And I don't know if I'm DJ, I don't know what to do when I don't know what Giroux and Kachuk and Stutzle were, but I imagine they were pretty well in the positives at 5-on-5. So, but I agree with Alex and Darcy here. Like coaching decisions is again going to play a huge factor in if they make it or not. Just the day to day, like who do you put with who, who's the top power play unit now that Norris is back. Like there's going to be a lot of questions around that.
Yeah, it would be especially interesting to see DJ in a playoff series and kind of like how he makes adjustments, because adjustments have kind of been something that is a known fault of his, where he doesn't adapt overly well to things, I don't find. But yes, he does deserve some credit for the different ways he kind of overcame some of the adversity last season. Back to your point there, yeah, Ottawa was 24-14-3 at home, which was like among the best record, maybe the best record among non-playoff teams.
I think it was like top 10 in the league or something.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
It's
it was very
really good. Like very few teams actually recorded 24 wins at home, and they were 15-21-5 on the road. So as you can see, like their faults were just on the road. Like if they were even a little bit better, like a couple more wins on the road, they might have been able to qualify this season for the playoffs. If you enjoyed the first half of this podcast, you can listen to the second half with a subscription to everydaysens.com. You'll gain access to a private link in which you can watch on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Your subscription not only grants access to additional podcasts, articles, wallpapers, and more, but it supports Everyday Sens in covering the team. Jack and I put countless hours into producing quality, unique content for fans of the Senators, and it just wouldn't be feasible without your support. So not only for the premium content, but also for the free content, we really do appreciate every single one of our subscribers. If you've been considering it, we highly recommend it, and that's where you're going to be able to watch the second half of this episode and every other members-only podcast. So thank you for listening, and go subscribe.